morning of May 18, 1927, rescue workers crawled beneath the ruined wing of a Michigan schoolhouse, digging for children, and found an alarm clock. It was wired to a car battery. The battery was wired to 500 pounds of dynamite and military surplus explosive, packed into the crawl space under the half of the school still standing, under the classrooms where the survivors had been sitting. The bomb had failed, which means the deadliest school massacre in American history, a record that still stands nearly a century later, was only half of what he planned. His name was Andrew Kehoe. He was not a stranger. He was the school board treasurer, and the town had given him the keys. Andrew Kehoe was 55 years old, and by every visible measure, a respectable man. He was educated. He had studied electrical engineering at Michigan State. He was skilled. Neighbors said he could repair any machine on any farm in the county. He was meticulous. He was known to change into a clean shirt in the middle of a workday. He was also drowning. In 1919, Kehoe and his wife Nellie had bought a 185-acre farm outside the village of Bath, Michigan. Bought it from Nellie's own family. With a mortgage, he came to believe he'd been cheated on. Farm prices collapsed in the 20s. Nellie was chronically ill with tuberculosis, and the hospital stays never stopped coming. The debts compounded quietly, the way debts do. Then, in 1922, the town built a school. The Bath Consolidated School was the kind of thing a small farming town builds when it believes in its own future. One modern building to replace the scattered one-room schoolhouses with real classrooms for every child in the township. Around 250 students. It was paid for the way everything in Bath was paid for, a property tax. Kehoe decided that tax was the reason he was going broke. It wasn't entirely. The mortgage and the medical bills were sinking him regardless. But grievance doesn't audit itself. In 1924, he got himself elected school board treasurer and spent the next years fighting the levy line by line, meeting by meeting, blaming the school for everything the school had not done to him. The board found him precise, stubborn, and cold. They also found him useful. He was good with machines. So in 1926, when the school needed maintenance work, wiring, repairs, the boiler, they gave the job to Andrew Kehoe, and with it, the keys to the building. That same year, the bank issued a foreclosure notice on his farm. He stopped paying the mortgage. He stopped paying the insurance. He had decided how this was going to end. What Andrew Kehoe did next took over a year, and the horror of it is the patience. He began buying explosives, not in one suspicious purchase, in small, boring, deniable ones. Dynamite from one store, then another, and pyritol, a war surplus incendiary explosive the government sold to farmers by the case, cheap, for blasting tree stumps out of fields. Every farmer in Michigan bought pyritol. Nobody counted how much one man was accumulating. Then, night after night, the school's trusted handyman let himself into the school. He worked in the crawl spaces beneath the floors, alone, methodically, over months. He ran wires under the length of the building. He packed explosives beneath the classrooms of children he knew by name. Children whose parents waved to him on the road. By May of 1927, there was well over 1,000 pounds of dynamite and pyritol under the Bath Consolidated School, split between the north and south wings, wired to timers. He wired his farm too. Every building. He packed the barn, the house, the sheds. He girdled his fruit trees so they would die. He cut his grapevines and wired his animals into their stalls. He wasn't planning to destroy the school. He was planning to erase everything: the farm that had failed him, the town that had taxed him, and the future it had taxed him for. At some point in those final days, the exact moment is not known, he beat his wife Nellie to death and left her body in a wheelbarrow behind the henhouse. The medical bills stopped being a problem. May 18th, 1927, was a Wednesday, and it was beautiful. One of the first real spring mornings of the year. It was the last week of school. The younger grades were sitting final exams. Around 250 children walked, rode, and were dropped off at the Bath Consolidated School, complaining about tests, trading plans for summer. Hold on these faces for a moment. In the version of this story where both bombs work, almost none of them survive. At about 8:45, the Kehoe farm exploded. Every building at once, a coordinated firebombing. Neighbors ran toward the smoke, and Andrew Kehoe, by design, was seen calmly driving his truck away from his burning farm toward town. He told the men rushing past him, in words they only understood later, "Boys, you're my friends. You better get out of here. You better head down to the school." Because at that same moment, under the north wing, the alarm clock reached its hour. The floor of the north wing lifted, and the roof came down onto the classrooms. 36 school children and 2 teachers were killed in that single instant. First, through 6th graders, at their desks, mid-exam. The sound was heard for miles. Parents reached the school within minutes and began tearing at the rubble with bare hands, some of them pulling out their own children. And in the south wing, the second clock ticked toward a charge that would have doubled everything. It malfunctioned. 500 pounds of explosive, and the circuit simply failed. No one in Bath knew that yet. They were about to meet the man responsible because Andrew Kehoe wasn't finished. About half an hour after the explosion, Kehoe drove his Ford truck up to the school. The truck bed was packed with dynamite and layered with metal, tools, nails, scrap. A shrapnel bomb he had built the same way he built everything, carefully. He called out to the school superintendent, Emery Huyck, who was directing the rescue. Huyck came to the truck, and Kehoe raised a rifle and fired into the explosives behind him. The blast killed Kehoe instantly, and Huyck and the town postmaster and a retired farmer helping with the rescue, and an 8-year-old boy named Cleo Clayton, who had just survived the first explosion and had wandered, dazed, out of the wreckage and into the street. The final toll was 45 dead, 38 of them children, and 58 injured, out of a village of roughly 300 people. There was no family in Bath the morning didn't touch. Rescue itself had to be halted when searchers found the unexploded 500 pounds under the south wing and realized the building they were digging in was still a bomb. When investigators combed the smouldering Kehoe farm, they found Nellie's body and, wired neatly to the fence, a wooden sign Kehoe had stenciled and hung for them to find. It read, "Criminals are made, not born." His final accounting. 55 years of grievance, arranged into 5 words that blamed the town for what he'd done to it. He was buried in an unmarked grave in a pauper's field. Bath buried its children for days, and then America forgot. 2 days after the disaster, a young pilot named Charles Lindbergh took off from New York, alone, for Paris. By the weekend, he was the most famous man on earth, and Bath, Michigan had vanished from the front pages. and national trauma displaced, almost to the hour, by a national celebration. The deadliest attack on a school in American history slipped out of the country's memory so completely that, decades later, each new school tragedy would be reported as unprecedented. It wasn't. The record was set in 1927 by a trusted man with a grievance, a year of patience, and the keys to the building, in a town that believed, right up until 8:45 that Wednesday morning, that it knew him. As we step out of the shadows for today, I want to thank you for your time. There are many more grim truths hidden in the past, waiting to be told. To ensure you're here for the next one, please subscribe. If you are ready to explore another dark chapter right now, you can click the video on your screen. Stay curious.